beautiful day on Hatteras Isle. Great time to be here. We welcome y'all. We're thankful you're here. We're all interested in what's got to be shown to us tonight. And I know that we'll have an open mind and look at it and try to see what kind of help we can get, where and how. I thank the elected officials here, Senator Stan White. I appreciate you very much. Chairman Judge is with us. This young lady is Betty Joe. She comes all the way from Senator Burr's office. And I want to tell you something. We appreciate it. We appreciate you putting the bill in last week.
In 2006 as a grassroots effort to bring a human face to what had become a turf battle of governmental bureaucracies. Our group strives to keep those involved in the replacement of the bridge focused on the fact that the primary issue is our public safety. In the summer of 2010, our group was able to pull together a historic number of citizens, more than 3,800 people, to submit public comment regarding the Herbert C. Bonner Bridge Replacement Project to the North Carolina Department of Transportation. An overwhelming majority, about 95% of those comments, favored the immediate replacement of the now 50-year-old bridge. In December of 2010, a record of decision was finally signed, clearing the way for NCDOT to move ahead with construction of a new bridge over Oregon Inlet. As expected, the environmental groups that have always been opposed to the project filed suit against the decision. However, NCDOT continues to move full speed ahead on the project. We have every reason to believe that in the latter part of 2012, we will begin to see the start of construction. That being said, the Bonner Bridge, key as it is to our infrastructure, is only one part of our lifeline, the NC-12 highway corridor. We support any actions that will keep it open, and in the future we will continue to work with the government officials towards a more proactive rather than reactive plan for its maintenance. We will remain vigilant in our efforts to make sure there are no further delays to this project. The bridge continues to be under an almost constant state of costly repair to remain up to standard. We can ill afford any further delay. Thank you.
Where the ceiling is going to be. In 1952, we had this cancer group on the island, and they went up to the Phipps Clubhouse, which was about a mile and a half north of the Buxton area, the Buxton Hotel area. And in 1955, allowed the Navy base to go and cut through that 25-foot dune where the Phipps Clubhouse used to be, and take millions of cubic yards of sand to fill in a swamp that is now, or used to be, the Navy houses first, and is now the Coast Guard houses, and now it's being sold. But the sand came from about a mile and a half north of the Buxton hotels. After they took all this sand in 1955, and the reason I remember that, that's the year my husband and I came to open up Adamant's Hotel. It was truck after truck after truck. My daughter's sitting there. She was young, but she can remember it also. After they did this, that's when the Buxton erosion started. At that time, there was 600 feet of beach from the Buxton and Cape Hatteras Hotel and Lighthouse Motel area. 600 feet, I remember that. When the erosion started so badly in 1962, after the inlet was cut, the Navy base had a secret installation near the lighthouse. Well, there again, the cancer we've been living with allowed them to put jetties in front of the Navy base. We all knew what the secret Navy base was, but we never spoke about it. But anyway, they put the jetties there. After the jetties were put there in the early 60s, I used to have pictures of every year. We lost 100 feet of beach back in the hotel. That's a lot of beach. Right now, the 600 feet of beach is gone. There will be an inlet north of the Buxton motels between Avon and those motels. If something is not done quickly, I have water going under my motel buildings every storm, every hot hour, really. Then here comes Camera along and says you can't put sandbag, you can't put anything on the beach to protect your property. It's a sad situation.
Like I said, over the last few years, I've seen a lot of good things here, but we've had a really bad trend here, negative things as well. For instance, we have hundreds and hundreds of signs here upon entering the Outer Banks that say no or prohibited. We have, and this is called a scenic byway, by the way, too. We have, I understand the way suburb is maybe 10 miles beach open. So maybe we can be on Dr. Beach's not pretty restricted beaches now. The parking permits are causing a problem up here in Boca Buxton. People that want to go kiteboarding for one day have to pay like a glorified parking fee of $50, which is ridiculous. After Hurricane Irene, we saw firsthand how working together things got accomplished. Now just imagine if the park would have started working with us way back when. This wouldn't happen. A lot of this wouldn't happen. We would be in much better shape now. And I think it's time for the park to wake up, ignore a lot of the junk science they've done, quit calling us visitors, call us good neighbors, and help us fix this. Because all of us working together, we can fix it.
I think the phrase of the day is to be proactive and not reactive. And I'm really interested to hear what these guys got to say because they can help us. I think everybody's on the same page. There's a million different angles and reasons for why we need to protect the highway and our businesses and our lifeline and our economy. And I think that now's the time to do it. These are the men that can help us do it. So I'm going to turn it over to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. We appreciate that. We've talked about a lot of our issues, our issues that face us every day, challenges, and everything's intertwined. Our road, the bridges, access to the beaches, how it affects our economy. It's all rolled in together. And tonight, through the efforts of Carol Dawson and Dave, we have a couple of gentlemen here that are going to give you a presentation. Gregory Sarno is the founder and chairman, and Guy Carl is the president of the Beach Recovery Nourishment Systems. And if I can just editorialize for 1 second, 15 years ago, Stan and I, Hugh Morton, if you all remember Hugh, he was a great friend to us into the effort not to move the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. And Hugh got his hands on a plane, and Stan and I and others drove to Raleigh, and a whole bunch of people met in Raleigh, and we flew up and spent the day at the Great Lakes, ironically looking at the very technology that these gentlemen are going to speak to tonight. So without further ado, Greg and Guy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol, for putting this together. Thank you all for showing up here on Friday night. Is it better now? Sorry about that. Thank you very much for coming out here. My name is Gregory J. Sarno, and I'm the founder of Beach Recovery. Started the company back in 2002, commercial real estate developer. And when I learned about this technology, that there's a solution, and why there is blatantly obvious, not just here, but internationally around the world, no one find it. I kind of sat back and said, what can I do to help? And I spent the last 10 years of my life doing R&D and putting a team together around the world. Not just Mr. Holmberg here, but also a group of scientists in Europe that can help model it, to explain it to the Corps of Engineers, and retain some retired Army officials and Corps of Engineers, and put a proper team together to effectively get through the MARNAB permitting process. There are two things really to install this technology. One is a permit, and two is money to pay for the system. And the guys here tonight talk about the system, the technology, and a solution to all the problems here tonight. Thank you.
First, I'd like to thank Carol. Have any of you ever had an epiphany after listening to a group of people speak? I've been doing this 8 years, and Carol spoke for 5 minutes. I'm going to give you guys the simplest explanation. I can kiss her. Any engineers in the room? Okay, great. I'm not. But help me out here because I've got an extensive background in construction. I'm explaining the system. Before we get started, I want to touch on what Carol said. Can everybody hear me without the microphone? All right. I'll crank it all the way. Now can you hear me? I want to be crystal clear with you. You guys that have an engineering background, back me up here, because I don't have one. I have a little level of intelligence. Every breach that you had is because the sand was tampered with, correct?
Correct.
Now, let me ask you this. When you build a house, do you build it on the top of the soil, or do you go down to hard pan first? I'm a North Carolina resident. I live in the mountains. We have to dig down to hard ground first. Now, the point of the epiphany I came to listening to Carol, which will help explain our technology second to none, is this. The only way to get maximum compaction on soil is through natural process. Any of you engineers disagree with that? Inch of ground, inch of water, inch of ground, inch of water. These huge mounds of sand you have protecting your road coming in here aren't protecting anything. You know it, I know it. The wind takes it down. Any amount of water can take it down. I would guarantee you can take it down with a fire hose. Any engineer disagreeing with that? These are your friends and neighbors, folks. This lady just helped me explain, because this process I'm going to show you is the only process known to man where it goes back a grain at a time. Maximum compaction, which is why it works. Which is why 50 years ago you guys had 600 feet of beach, because you had maximum compaction, and when nobody tampered with the sand, the ocean, nothing could damage it. That sand is the most viable source, which is why everywhere on the planet it's the only thing being used to combat erosion today. People are pumping sand offshore to onshore. The problem is it's not going back in the natural process. Are we all together? All right, we'll start this now. Can everybody see that? Great. The purpose of our presentation is to introduce the beach nourishment system for managing coastal erosion through the use of environmentally responsible mining, an effective, proven method to fix coastal erosion. This is Stickney Ridge in Michigan. Now, some would argue because this is on a lake, it's not the ocean, it's not the same thing, so forth and so on. However, after you've studied and understand what creates a wave, what creates a fetch, the whole 9 yards, you'll understand it has absolutely nothing to do with whether it comes off of a body of water like this. It's the distance between the landmass that creates the amount of wave. These people here would argue with you till the cows come home that they live on the ocean. 30-foot waves. This house that you see on the left side of the picture there was a house beside it that ended up in the water. The gentleman who created our technology went in there, put in a system. As you can see, this picture is roughly 20 years later. 30 years later, that dune is fully advanced and now is covered with sea grass. The beach nourishment system, how it works, it's a series of geotextile nourishment tubes that diminish wave energy, which we consider to be underwater speed bumps. They slow the moving water, allowing the sand to drop out of suspension and reconstitute the beaches. More turbulent water means more energy and faster sand. Can you skip it items in here? I'm gonna show you a 3D rendering. This is more cartoonish, it's just for explanation. But from the looks of your beach that I looked at in front of Carol Lynn's Hotel, this scarfing that you see in the dark color here in the front, that's similar to what's going on at your beach already, right? This system, how it's installed, a series of tubes. I want you to get it confused that it's just one tube going out. It's more advanced, it's more complex than that. But for simplification purposes, we put this here to show you what happened. In your explanation, the water that's going perpendicular to the shore will hit these speed bumps, slow down, and then drop out of suspension and fill in the inners between the tubes, creating a shoreline like this, which is what you used to have. Now, I know the first question that everybody has is, well, we're in the middle of the ocean, we have high energy here, how will this system work? The more energy, the better, because it's going to fill the system up faster. But the second thing is, living out here in Hatteras, we have plenty of sand. This is the most ideal location to put this system in. I mean, we have more sand here than most people dream of having this much sand to fix their beach. How this works, if you can see these little spirals, these tubes are laid down in such a manner based upon spacing. There's lots of engineering that goes into it, but the spacing is mathematically equated to give a vortex, so it actually bounces the sand back to shore. There's a gentleman in Petros, Greece that's helped us mathematically model this. We'll get into more details if you need more of that. This is basically the same mathematical procedure being shown. It shows that the sand deposits are coming from offshore, not onshore. That's why they're color coded, and you see how they're like with the dark. I'm not looking at the screen, but you see the dark purple with the blue arrow, and then the spiral in the center between the tubes, and then you see the purplish coloring there. That's showing or modeling that the sand is actually coming from offshore versus perpendicular to the shore. This is a underwater BMS system installed in Greece. As you can see, you can virtually not tell the difference there, but that's actually a tube that's exposed on the ocean bed. This is going to be a tough topic, but this system you're looking at here is in Saudi Arabia. This system is a system that was supposed to go here. We saved the Hatteras Lighthouse. It was revamped, brought to Saudi Arabia in 1999. They fixed the beach there. We Googled it right now. It looks the exact same in this picture does. Because when you have a healthy beach, it grows to a certain level, stops, and it stays healthy. You have high energy that comes in. It may remove some of the sand, and if it exposes the system goes back to work, bringing sand back to shore. But it's only going to bring as much sand back as is necessary to cover the system. BNS works with nature to bring back the beach, and now I'm going to have to add a slide in here because of Carol for people to understand. And not only is it bringing sand back, and because of the natural compaction that's taking place, that's why the wave energy cannot disrupt the system that's installed, which consequently is why all the systems that have been installed are still working today. This is Ludington, Michigan. There's before and after. This is Allegiant County, Michigan, before and after. As you can see, there's a 12-year spread there of before and after. We've actually physically visited every one of these sites because when we got involved doing beach recovery and got interested in this concept and to understand it, we wanted to put feet on the ground and do our due diligence and make sure we wouldn't make snowfall. This is the New Buffalo project. As you can see, that's the 17-year difference there. The picture in the middle, as you can see, they were about ready to lose their pool. This is Saudi Arabia. They were at 0-0. They couldn't go any farther back. They couldn't move back. They couldn't put any amendments in. There was nothing else to do. They had done everything they could do to battle erosion for 40 years. Oil Remco called Mr. Holmberg. We have a video of it. It's actually quite interesting because there's over 40 engineers standing there the entire time watching this entire process going on, saying that it cannot possibly work. But if you see the picture on the right, 150 feet of beach in 90 days. It's the same today as it does then. Because once it's restored, it stays the same. The majority of construction is done by local labor. We bring in the guys who know how to do it, and we try to use local labor for every bit of this process. It requires a very small footprint. So fisheries, and it's not an issue here that I know of, but like in South Carolina, we have turtle issues. So they go, well, we don't want to put a system in, you're going to bury the turtle. Well, if you drop an extra grain of sand on top of the turtle, it's going to come up a little higher. So that's the nice thing about this system, is it does not interrupt the ecosystem whatsoever. And we have studies to prove that the fisheries come back and everything comes back. I mean, it's a very, very interesting process. The environmental benefits, native ecosystems are restored, sand dunes. Not all beaches have this, obviously, is one of them. They get seagrass that grows naturally here, I would assume. I don't think you guys planted it at all. The gradual change of the habitat, reestablishing healthy marine life, fish bottom dwellers, increased vegetation growth, acts to the carbon sink. I don't want to get real deep into all that kind of stuff. Financial benefits, no nourishment or maintenance after the BNS installation. Tourist dollars, increased property value pays to the DNS. Increased property value for tax revenue. We have this analysis on our website. You're welcome to look it up and get more details on that. We don't think we need to read every bit of that. General steps to install a beach nourishment system. Initial site survey for client location. You guys have a huge beach here to deal with. I don't want to be presumptuous by any man. I don't even know if this is something you're entertaining as far as beach recovery. We're here to show you a process to start your thought pattern of how you want to go about it and influence your local leaders to make a decision one way or another. I'm here to tell you, and that's why I wanted to emphasize what Carol said. I know of no process after doing this for 8 years that's going to put it back like it's supposed to be, except for this system. This is the only system that's going to put it back a grain at a time and give you that maximum compaction. So you're not going to have a breach. But this is the process we would have to go through. We have to go through an initial site survey, no matter if we're doing a small section as a test or we're doing the entire coastline. We have to gather field data for engineers to design the UNS system. We have to determine the permitting requirements, submit permits and environmental reports, and then we install. The business arrangement can go many different ways. We do the design, we do the engineering, we do the permitting. Beach Recovery works with the local engineers and attorneys to help secure the client's permits. Construction and monitoring, Beach Recovery works with local labor, engineers, and subcontractors to install the BNS system. Business arrangement, design, and engineering. Solicit and obtain local engineering firms. I don't know if you have one here locally, but I'm sure you don't have one too far off the island. Perform data collection and existing condition survey. It sounds like a bunch of you may have photographs from way back. All those things are very beneficial to try to determine where the coastline was at one time. Introduce technology to permitting authority, which obviously we're introducing it tonight to some folks. Perform detailed design for DNS candidate site. File a permit application for the client. Business arrangement. And that's about it. I don't need to go through it detail by detail. I know you guys have a ton of questions, so why don't we just fire off? Go ahead.
Let's go back 2 slides.
Two slides.
2 slides that said permitting and not something new, you guys.
Right there. Permit requirements are similar to traditional nourishment, like a borrow site, like you would do for pump and dump. not saying that's not a viable solution, Bonnie. I'm not here to condemn anybody's operation or how they go about proceeding. However, how long have you been pumping sand in this country? How much does it cost? What are the net benefits? You know, we deal with this every day, and I don't like to say anybody's system is one way or another, but like I said, I had an epiphany saying, listen, it's terrible. You can pump all the sand you want. The problem is when you pump the sand offshore to onshore, the granular structure, if you go out here on any part of this beach, and I noticed it in front of the hotel, if you look down at the water line, the grains of sand are pretty heavy. As you get up towards the top, it's almost like pepper. It's very smooth sand. It gets deposited back in the natural process. But if you take it and just dump it from a dump truck or dump it from out off a ship, from offshore, whatever, it's going to lay there in the process that it was put in until it gets taken right back away.
I have numerous questions, so I'll just give you one at a time.
Okay, that's fine.
Somebody else wants to ask them. Well, you showed numerous slides of before and after, and you said this was 17 years ago, this is what it is, and it's sustained itself. I listened to all the people earlier this evening talking about how we need this lifeline. And a lifeline is just like an artery, you know? You cut it, it's critical. So what is the time frame? Let's say you can, let's say you got through all the permits, you install these things like in 2 months. What are we talking about in terms of our lifeline?
As far as how long it takes to install the system?
No. How long is it going to take to keep our lifeline open? Because that's what we're talking about.
How long does it take from sand to recover? Well, first of all,
How long is it going to take to protect these highways that everybody's talking about being our lifeline?
if you had a permit today, I can tell you in Saudi Arabia, it took about 45 days to install that with full manual labor. I'm talking,
Not installed. How long is our lifeline going to be?
oh, these systems have been in forever. I mean, they're not, today, they're still there.
Okay, once they're installed, how long is it going to take to where our road is protected?
Immediately, erosion will stop. You will have no more erosion and sand will start coming back. That project in Saudi Arabia, because it's on salt water, it was full in 90 days.
So do you have this installed anywhere in a hurricane zone? I mean, I understand B zones and that
I'm not
great.
going to tell you that. I can tell you that they've been
Why
trying.
wouldn't you tell us that?
What's that?
Why would you not?
I know I'm saying we don't have one. I'm not going to tell you that we do because we don't.
Okay.
We don't. We don't have any. I am a North Carolina resident. I want one in North or South Carolina because I believe this is the ocean to test the system and prove the system. But I know this also. There's nothing else that does either. So it's win or lose, but I'll put my money on win because I think this system is the only system based upon what I told you earlier, natural compaction. You can't get natural compaction any other way. Well, the nice thing about your guys' environment here is you don't have a bunch of revetments or jetties or rock walls or any of that stuff to remove, and you have a full sandy bottom. So the cost would be, I can't guarantee the cost, but a rough idea would probably be half of what it would cost to pump sand on a mile of beach. So if you're trying to protect a mile of beach and it's costing $1 million to protect, I'm just giving you weird numbers here. This isn't what it costs or anything. What I'm saying is if it costs $1 million to pump sand on a mile of beach, for us to protect that same mile of beach permanently would be somewhere around $500,000.